I would now like to introduce today's presenters. Sharang Sharma is a vice president overseeing Everest Group's research across CX tech areas. Anubhav Das is a practice director with a focus on CX technologies, along with a broader CXM coverage. And with that, I'd like to turn things over to Sharang.
Thank you so much, Agnes. Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's session. We're looking forward to an exciting and engaging discussion on this interesting topic. And welcome, Anubhav. Happy to have you along with me.
Thanks,
So,
Alan.
for the topics today, there are a couple of themes that we'll be talking about as part of this session, starting from understanding what the CX tech priorities are for the enterprises, and currently what are the challenges that they face. We'll also be talking about a unified CX tech approach, which of course is the theme of this session. So what does that look like? What does that entail? We'll be covering that as part of this section. Gen AI, I think it's on everyone's mind. Everyone's been talking about it. We'll talk about how do you really supercharge your CX tech through the use of Gen AI, and how does it really fit into that unified CX strategy. And then finally, we'll spend some time talking about the vendor landscape, who are the providers or tech vendors out there who offer these kind of solutions, and what are some of the pricing trends that we've seen in the market. And then, of course, like Agnes said, we'll spend some time towards the end taking up on questions that you have throughout the session. So please keep those questions coming. We'd love to hear what's on your mind. With that, let us get started. Now, I think what has happened in the last couple of years is CX has become a strategic priority for a lot of enterprises. And it's driven by the fact that the kind of business outcomes that enterprises can derive through an effective CX strategy has become very evident for most of these enterprises. Now, as they look at formulating the CX strategy, they're also looking at CX tech, which is a really crucial component when it comes to your CX strategy, and you need to make sure you get it right. What enterprises are doing as they're looking at their CX tech is they're looking at it from a strategic lens and trying to solve for actual business problems. What these problems are, well, there are a number of things that are on top of their list. The first is we talk about, a 360-degree view of the customer. So understanding what the customer needs are across that entire life cycle, right? Starting from marketing, sales, support. So establishing that unified view that is becoming really critical for the enterprises. Another priority that is really important is improving operational efficiency through the use of AI and automation. We're hearing about a lot of technologies, both Gen AI and otherwise on the automation front, technologies like conversational AI, chatbots, self-serve. So how do you integrate that into your operation and get the most out of it? I think that's another business priority for the enterprises. Having solutions that are scalable and flexible, right? So that can be easily scaled up or scaled down depending on the business environment, can take into account the fluctuations that we typically see with different occasions, like let's say the holidays or otherwise across the year. Having those kind of flexible solution is critical. Solutions that can allow brands to deliver that kind of consistent brand messaging, be it across different channels, be it across different parts of the world or different languages, but having that consistent messaging is very crucial. And then finally, we've been hearing a lot about the employee experience, the agent satisfaction. So how do you make sure that through the use of technology, you can uplift that experience for the agents? I think that's another critical piece of the puzzle that enterprises are trying to solve for. Now, as they're looking to solve for these challenges, there are some hurdles that they expect or they've witnessed in their current journey that is stopping them from realizing the full benefits of these transformation journeys that they're on. A couple of common themes, recurring themes that we hear from enterprises across the board, from different industries, from different parts of the globe, are things like integration issues. specifically in industries where they're still using legacy platforms and solutions. So typical issues that we hear about are incompatible systems. The data mapping is so complex and burdensome that most of the enterprises are apprehensive towards it. Even with new solutions, there are several API limitations that hamper from using the most out of these solutions. The other big challenge that we hear about is multiple point solutions. Yes, there are a lot of solutions in the market right now for CX specifically that can do a lot of work in this area. But the issue becomes once you're dealing with a lot of these solutions, bringing it all together, creating that kind of unified view that we talked about, I think that becomes really difficult. What it also results is in increased training costs for the employees, a higher cost in integration, maintenance, and uptime. And the other disadvantage is that what really happens with using multiple point solutions is you're creating different data silos in the organization. What that leads to is inconsistent customer information, inefficient decision making because you don't have that kind of single view of the customer. Some of the other challenges, omni-channel integration. Everyone's been talking about omni-channel for the last, I don't know, I've been in this industry for a decade and I've been hearing it since the time I joined. But I think as we reach or try to reach that kind of end objective with omni-channel, I think having that kind of different solutions makes it difficult to track customer journeys across different channels. It also becomes really difficult for enterprises to deliver that kind of consistent experience across, let's say, a voice or a chat or some other channel. As AI becomes important for enterprises, right, they need to have a view around how they're implementing AI in their operations. And that is becoming one of the biggest challenge for enterprises because they don't have that kind of internal expertise or the resources to train AI models effectively, integrate it into their existing ecosystem platforms, and also managing the costs, making it real, making sure that the promise that they've been shown is actually realistic and achievable. And then finally, like I said, scalability is another issue where with the current solutions, they run into challenges around performance issues during peak times, limited customization options with some of these solutions. So all of these are some of the big challenges that we typically hear about as we talk about, the CX tech stack for the enterprises. Which leads us to one of the possible solutions that we are observing in the market, which is a unified CX tech approach. Now, before we deep dive into how it can solve for these challenges, let's try to understand what essentially a unified tech strategy means. Again, it's no rocket science, but what we really mean by a unified CX strategy is a more of an integrated approach where different customer-facing technologies that are deployed within CX, be it sales, marketing, or support, come together and create that kind of seamless, consistent experience for the customers across all touch points, right? So a technology that can talk within the different solutions that are used to solve for customer problems at different parts of that customer journey that helps you enable create that kind of unified view. And what are the advantages of such a technology stack or integrated tech stack? First of all, speaking from experience, enterprises who have adopted such kind of solutions, we've seen that the customer satisfaction has been considerably higher than those who haven't, right? What it allows enterprises to do is deliver that kind of consistent personal experience that elevates the entire customer experience. We also see that using a unified CX strategy, enterprises are able to increase the operational efficiencies by reducing the redundancies, the duplication in work, the training times, and streamlining processes. So the entire system becomes much more efficient. And then finally, data. Data is something that gets talked about so often and is so crucial to current digital strategies that enterprises have set out for themselves. By using a unified tech strategy, you're able to improve that kind of decision-making process internally. What that allows you to do as an enterprise is make decisions in real time and make sure that you're able to deliver that kind of superior customer experience to the customers. What we've also seen is that with a unified CX tech strategy, you're able to improve the time for ROI, the speed of outcomes, all of that gets really accelerated. So let's say something that you would have achieved with point solutions over a period of 3 years, now you're able to do that realistically in anywhere between 6 to 18 months, which is a huge improvement over what was achieved earlier. And now, double clicking on what does that CX tech stack, that is unified talks that we've been talking about, looks like. The way we've seen the market move, I think, when we talk about that unified tech stack, we essentially mean an ecosystem that covers that end-to-end journey for the customers. So, like I said, sales, marketing, support, and covering everything, all the essential elements within that. So, for example, when we talk about support, for instance, having that kind of state-of-the-art contact center solutions, be it cloud-based, that kind of chatbots, agent enablement, or agent assist solutions, advanced ticketing systems, all of that is part of the customer support side. Similarly, on the sales enablement side, we see solutions that adhere to problems around demand generation, forecasting and lead scoring, sentiment analytics, personalized outreach. And then similarly on the marketing side, we see solutions that are related to engagement platforms, content management systems, SEO tools, and then finally on the analytics side as well, right? Things like customer analytics, voice of customer, journey management, or even customer feedback and sales analytics. All of that is really crucial. So and of course, all of this needs to have that unified data layer, which becomes possible through advanced CRM systems, customer data platforms, right? So as you're looking at that unified CX strategy, you need to consider all of these touch points and all of these solutions that you're using within your own ecosystem, and make sure that as you're looking at that unified view, you're considering or incorporating all of these solutions. And of course, all of this is powered or supported by a layer of AI and automation. I think everything these days is. But again, we see AI and automation being more of a horizontal that touches upon solutions across these categories, and it's able to actually enhance the efficiency for most of these solutions to a significant extent. But I'll pass on the baton now to Anubhav to talk about, we've been talking about bringing together sales, marketing, and support. What does that really mean? And what are the kind of benefits that we can see, Anubhav, if you could just walk us through that?
Yeah, thanks, Sharon. So yeah, as Sharon mentioned, right, like we talked about how a unified CX tech strategy covers the different parts of the employee life cycle. Now I want to focus really on how integrated tech stack can enable the three main customer-facing departments of an organization, right? Which is marketing, sales, and customer service teams to work together to the same goal using the same data, right? How does that happen? So here you see there's a Venn diagram where you see in the center is a term called unified CX. So this is essentially a system or a state where all your customer facing functions rather converge and they work in harmony. And how that happens is by creating a common tech stack, right? So essentially, how does a unified tech stack really help each of these teams, right? In various different ways. Firstly, having a unified tech stack creates a single source of truth. Now that means that a unified tech stack will gather data from all different customer touchpoints and interactions that the customer might have. This will also ensure that the marketing teams and the sales teams and customer support teams have access to the latest data. Any changes to customer data is also accessible across the platform, and that ensures that sales teams and customer support teams are able to base their strategies based on the latest information. Secondly, it also helps in consistent messaging and branding. So you see on the intersection between the sales and the marketing team is consistent personalized messaging. So with the access to the same data and content repositories through a unified tech stack, these teams can ensure that the communications and interactions are consistent in tone, in style, and in information across different stages of the customer journey. And this also leads to personalized engagement. And then there's another important aspect of using data, right? Sharon talked about a uniform data layer, right? So the aspect of using data to drive decisions. So here you see, between sales and customer service is enhanced upselling and cross-selling. That's where using data by tracking, analyzing, customer data, customer behavior, sales teams and customer support teams can perhaps do better cross-selling and upselling using that uniform data layer, which is enabled by a uniform tech stack. And finally, consistent go-to-market strategies as well, right? A uniform tech stack enables that the branding and messaging is consistent across all the regions, and that helps in building a sort of loyalty that is essential for enterprises that have a footprint in different regions. And this also helps marketing teams to design campaigns and have go-to-market strategies that are aligned and have the right sort of brand coherence that is necessary for them to succeed. All right, next slide. Sorry. Oops. Yeah. All right. So we've come to the time for our first poll. So we've talked about uniform CX step. We want to do a dipstick check in terms of what is the current level of integration that you have between the three departments that we talked about: customer support, sales, and marketing. Is it fully integrated, wherein all the three systems are seamlessly connected and sharing data between each other? Is it partially integrated, where you have certain systems sharing data, but not all of them? Or is there minimal integration where there's hardly any connection between the systems and data mostly lies in silos? Or is it not integrated at all? Or you could not be sure about it, and so you can choose that option as well.
Yeah, I see some of the early results, and I think clearly pointing that most of the enterprises or most of the people we have here are saying that there's some level of partial integration. I think it is good. What this really establishes is that everyone understands the benefit of that unified strategy across sales, marketing, and support, like we've been talking. How do you really achieve it? I think that's the next level or the next question that you need to answer, right? And then I think that's where technology plays such an important role. We'll just give another 5-10 seconds before we wrap up this poll. So let's see what the final results are like.
So we're at 59% that have said partially integrated. So yeah, that's a huge majority. We've had some that have said fully integrated. It's 5%, and we've had minimal integration and no integration as well. So there are some that are really struggling with integration as well. But I think to your point, Sharon, I think the majority of enterprises do understand the importance of this, and that's why they have started their journey. But there's a lot more for them to achieve to get to that uniform tech stack where there's completely seamless data transfer and that uniform data layer between the three departments.
Absolutely.
Right. Let's move on in the interest of time. Sorry. Yeah. So we talked about the uniform tech CX tech. I think so. According to us, one of the ways of getting to that uniform CX tech is by adopting a platform-based approach in helping in achieving some of the objectives that again we talked about, right? So in order to visualize what a platform-based approach would look like, I wanted to use a very commonplace example, which is through a house plant, right? So here, what you see is a plant which has three sub branches: customer service, sales, and marketing. The three main departments that I talked about. And although they are different in color, what you can see is that they have consistent growth, which is representing uniform user experience across the three sub departments. So whether you're being contacted by a service team, or whether it's a marketing campaign, or it is the sales, the experience is same, the messaging is same. Then what you see is those three departments, they actually submerge into one main stem, right? This is the data layer that we are talking about. So by consolidating that customer data from various different touch points into a single platform, organizations can get that 360-degree view of each customer. And then you have the platform there, right? This is essentially the soil which is holding this entire tree together and nourishing it as well. Then you have the enhanced security layer, right? And that is represented by the base here. A unified platform, what it does, it simplifies the management of regulatory compliance across different regions by centralizing the necessary controls and processes, and it provides the right sort of protection for handling customer data that is necessary in this sort of a setup. And finally, you see the lady that is watering the plant, that represents the cost savings. Again, a benefit of using a unified platform is that it eliminates the need for having separate systems and different processes, as well as the IT overhead costs that would come with having different systems that need to be managed together. So that leads to overall cost savings, improved efficiency, as well as a more agile and context-aware organization.
Thanks, Anubhav. I only wish my home plants or indoor plants grew as well as the representation here. But we'll move on now. So I think the next interesting theme that we want to touch upon is GenAI, right? Everyone's been talking about GenAI, and specifically for CX, I think there's a lot of interest because some of the use cases we've seen out there, some of the early results that some of the organizations have been able to achieve. So I think there's usually a lot of excitement around GenAI. Now, let's try to fit it into the context of a unified CX strategy, right? How can GenAI make that dream a reality or make it more effective? Now, there are a couple of ways in which we see that happening. I think the power of GenAI and the kind of amount of processing it can do, it just makes it easier, if you have that GenAI powered layer, to improve that data integration and unification across different solutions within that ecosystem, right? So something that would have taken manually probably a lot more time, would have probably made it infeasible. That becomes really possible with GenAI and the kind of capabilities it has. What we've also seen is that GenAI has made it easier to scale different systems within the organization. So let's say you have a support function that is supported by an AI or chatbot, right? Using GenAI, what it becomes now feasible is to scale that up to handle more than one type of inquiries, or use similar kind of architecture in other parts of the organization. So let's say moving from a customer support to tech support on the internal side. Improved insights and analytics. I mean, this is something that we hear so much frequently around how GenAI can actually improve the quality of insights and analytics, right? It can sift through large amounts of data, both structured and unstructured, and generate insights that are much more business user friendly, right? So I don't need to be an expert in using, let's say, some of the advanced analytics platforms to get some of the insights. I can probably use a simple conversational UI where I type in, I'm trying to understand how the customer experience has been over the last 6 months, specifically for this region, for this product. And GenAI can create that kind of customized, tailored reports, taking data from different parts of the organizations and making it much more easier for me to consume. Enhancing personalization at scale, right? I mean, we talk about hyper-personalization and how it can do wonders for CX. But again, it's not easy. You talk about creating that kind of individual experiences for the customers, but to tailor those experiences, you need to do a lot of work on the back end. With GenAI, I think, and the kind of capability that it has, either around analytics or content creation, enhanced personalization really becomes feasible at a large scale. What we've already seen is that even the existing automation solutions that exist out there in the market, their efficiency has been improved considerably through the use of GenAI. So I think that's already established. Creating that kind of consistent experience across different channels, that becomes feasible. And understanding that kind of broader journey, right? Right from the start place where you think about acquiring a customer, onboarding them and supporting them through that life cycle. I think with GenAI, you can monitor those journeys much more effectively, identify what those pain points are. And even if you're trying to make any change, understand what those kind of impact could be upstream and downstream. So better visibility on that entire customer journey, I think that becomes possible, which helps enhance the efficiency or impact of that unified tech strategy. But even otherwise, I mean, if I talk about GenAI, there are a lot of other business objectives that it can help enterprises achieve across that kind of unified offering, right? Like we said and talked about hyper-personalized customer interactions through things like content creation, understanding customer priorities better, using real-time analytics, proactive engagement. I think everyone talks about how proactive engagement is the next step or evolution in customer support. But if you can identify, let's say, problems before they occur, I think GenAI really makes that possible. Content creation. I think we're already seeing a lot of application for this in industries like retail, travel, and hospitality, where for someone who, let's say, has never visited Greece, I can still create a very personalized itinerary for my customer who's looking to plan that honeymoon trip that needs to be magical, right? So I don't necessarily need that kind of talent where someone has been to Greece and can help create that personalized itinerary. I can just use it using GenAI. Real-time analytics, so we've already discussed this. The other thing is supporting human agents, right? So I think one of the misconceptions that is out there in the industry is that GenAI will eliminate humans completely from areas like marketing, support, or sales. I don't think that's going to happen. And honestly, a lot of industry experts would agree with me. But what we expect will happen, though, is that AI will supercharge the human agents that are already there, right? So think of it like this, GenAI becomes another tool in your arsenal as an agent to improve the experiences for the customers, right? So I have, rather than 10 different screens that I need to go through to answer someone's question, I can just use a single unified view that is giving me that kind of next best action analysis using real-time analytics powered by GenAI. So making agents more efficient, uh, more empathetic. I think all of that can happen through use of GenAI. Multilingual support, I think we'll see a lot of potential for actually providing support in multiple languages in real time, and not just across chat, but we are also seeing a lot of use cases across other channels like voice, where GenAI can power that kind of real-time translation and to fairly good accuracy level, understanding those regional nuances, accents so much better. Then some of the other things where we're seeing application for GenAI self-service, so solving problems before they even need to come to an agent, improving or automating workflows, be it internally in the front office or improving that kind of integration between front and back office. I think a lot of that becomes possible using GenAI. What that essentially means for you as an organization is improved productivity, better operational efficiencies, reduced costs, better customer experience, and finally better agent or employee experience as well. So all in all, a win-win across the board.
All right.
Right. Anubhav, if you could just talk about the landscape and help us understand, who are the leading players out there in the market as we talk about that unified strategy. So over to you.
Yeah. All right. So when it comes to the CX tech vendor landscape, right, it's a pretty interesting lay of the land when we look at it. So I mean, generally when we talk of CX or contact center platforms, what generally comes to our mind is the usual suspects, right? The Avayas and the Genesis of the world, which are focused on contact center. But when we really explore the entire CX tech stack, where we also factor in the sales and the marketing angle of it, because when we're talking from a unified CX perspective, it's not just contact center, right? So it really falls down into 5 major buckets. So we'll go through one by one each, but what's really striking here to see is the variety of vendors in each category, right? From some of the tech giants like the Oracles, the Avayas that I mentioned here, to very specific or niche providers as well, which are catering to some of these subsections. So firstly, obviously the contact center or the CCaaS platforms, which offer their solutions, contact center solutions on cloud as well as on-prem. What they do is, they pull customer data and allow agents to provide personalized service. The way they work is also they integrate with some of the other components here. You see the CDPs, so they connect with CDPs to access detailed customer profiles, which can then in turn help them in tailoring interactions based on customer preferences and behaviors. Next up in the list is digital experience platforms. Essentially, these focus on creating and delivering personalized digital experiences across different channels like web, mobile, and other digital channels. And they are essential for managing the content, orchestrating customer journey, and optimizing user experiences. Again, these also work with let's say a CRM platform, to ensure that the digital experiences that they create are consistent with the overall or the broader customer relationship management strategy. And they might even leverage CDPs to personalize some of the content based on the unified customer view. Then obviously the CRM platforms, which are really sort of the hub that connects various elements of the CX tech stack together. Again, they integrate with contact center platforms to provide agents with customer data during the interactions. They might even interact with the DXPs to personalize some of the digital experiences and so on. And then next in the list is customer data platforms, right? What they do is they aggregate and unify customer data across different channels and systems to create that unified or comprehensive customer profile. And these, and then CDPs, as I mentioned, right, they feed into, again, all of these different contact center focused platforms, digital experience platforms, CRM platforms. So for example, a CDP can, provide a digital experience platform with the right sort of data to, to tailor the web content, or give a CRM the necessary insights to guide the sales and the customer service teams for more personalized interactions. And finally, customer success platforms, right? These are focused on ensuring that customers achieve some of the desired outcomes, whether it is, product usage or, certain metrics that are required for depicting the right kind of product usage or service usage. Again, what they do is they pull data from CRMs and CDPs to understand the customer health, to understand if there's any chance of any customer churn, or what the overall sentiment is, right? They might also integrate with, let's say, contact center platforms to streamline the communications with customers, and maybe even create some sort of proactive outreach based on predictive analytics, right? So essentially, I mean, it's clear that a lot of vendors, there's a lot of interoperability that exists between these different categories, and that is why some of the leading vendors, what they do is they create that comprehensive platform strategy where they focus really on a lot of interoperability, focus on easy API integrations, which help them in connecting the bridges between the different solutions, because most of these solutions are most effective when they are working together and not in isolation. And that's why there's this focus on building solutions which have very high interoperability, because that's when they will really outshine, or you'll get the best leverage out of these solutions. And then if you
just wanted to add one clarification, the logos are just representative. We know there are a lot more other players that are there in the market. Just giving a flavor of who some of these vendors are. Sorry, back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we talk about the competition, we could not include hyperscalers into it. In fact, we have an entire slide for it, because that shows really how important this category of players are becoming into the market, right? We've been seeing in the last 4 to 5 years, perhaps even more than that, that these guys, the Googles, the Amazons, and the Microsoft especially, are making significant inroads into the CX market, and their entry is leveraged or is marked by the leverage of their extensive technological ecosystems that they have created, their cloud infrastructure, and obviously their AI capabilities as well. The way that they're doing it is by creating end-to-end platforms, right? If you look at this slide, like all three of them have solutions across the entire unified CX tech stack that we are talking about. All of them have a CCaaS offering. In fact, Google and Amazon have really been doing pretty well in scaling up their CCaaS solution. Google CCAI and Amazon Connect both have been performing really well in improving some of the capabilities of their CCaaS offering. Even when it comes to conversational AI, right? Google has its Dialogflow, which is an NLU platform for building conversational AI bots. Then Amazon has, again, done really well in infusing generative AI in their conversational AI offering through Amazon Q. And they also have Amazon Lex that helps in building those conversational AI interfaces. And of course, there's Azure AI as well that Microsoft comes with. And we talked about cloud scalability as well, right? Like hyperscalers bring unmatched scalability when it comes to their cloud infrastructure, and that is the base on which they build their solutions. This really allows enterprises to scale their CX operations, whether it is expanding contact center capabilities, or it is integrating new digital channels, or just processing a lot of customer data in real time. Then on the marketing side as well, right? You can see that all of these providers have identified and created solutions for the marketing tech or ad tech side as well. I mean, Google has its own marketing platform which focuses on the display, video 360 ads, search ads, and so on and so forth. And even Amazon and Microsoft have, again, created offerings for the marketing and the advertisement side as well. What they do also really very well, which I talked about in the previous slide, is their interoperability or their integration with existing systems. I mean, this flexibility that they provide is really crucial for enterprises who might be having existing tech and they want to sort of work with hyperscalers. So this flexibility of integrating with existing tech systems is something that they really provide very well. For example, AWS, right? It has its own marketplace, which provides a diverse selection of CRM solutions that can integrate with the AWS infrastructure. This flexibility really allows businesses to choose the best tools for their needs while ensuring that they can leverage the AWS infrastructure as well. And finally, last but not the least, obviously, is the global reach that these providers have and the data security as well, right? Because hyperscalers provide reliable, secure, and compliant CX solutions that can be deployed across multiple regions. It's really a very good choice for enterprises that are large enterprises that have spread across different parts of the globe to work with these hyperscalers, given the consistency in the level of CX standards and data security levels that they require when they're serving their customers who are spread across different markets. So we've talked about it. We've talked about hyperscalers. Again, what we want to do is really do a dipstick check in terms of how is everyone doing in terms of working with hyperscalers, right? So the next poll is, how much are you really working with the hyperscalers for your CX tech needs? Are you directly engaging with them, or are you engaging with them but through your service providers, or you're not engaging with them but are strongly considering them, especially now that I've told you the benefits that they provide, or they're not in your plans at all?
And just wanted to highlight, please keep the questions coming. We're happy to take those on. We have some dedicated time towards the end of the session. We will be taking your questions. But of course, the focus of the thing right now is the poll that we're having. I think one of the interesting things is, given that, like you talked about, the suite of offerings is so expansive, right? There's probably a solution that Google, Amazon, or Microsoft offers for some part of the problem that you have around CX. That I think what ends up happening is, as an enterprise, you're using them in some shape and form. And I think I'm just looking at the poll. We'll probably close it in another 10-15 seconds. But I think that's what the poll is highlighting towards as well. So just another 10-15 seconds if you want to share in or feed in your answer, then we'll be closing this poll. Let's just give everyone another couple of seconds. All right, I think we've gotten a good amount of answers. We can share the results now.
Yeah.
So
73% have worked with hyperscalers. That shows that, I mean, everybody is pretty much in line with what we are saying and what we are thinking as well in terms of what hyperscalers bring to the table. Some of them do work with the hyperscalers indirectly through third-party partners.
Yeah, so that number adds up to 80% if you look at it collectively. So yeah, every 4 in 5 enterprises out there are working with the hyperscalers. I think this just shows the kind of strong product offerings that they have in the market right now. And I think the other thing is, sorry, I know, I'm taking a little bit more time, but I think with GenAI and kind of solutions, investments that a Microsoft or a Google or an Amazon is throwing behind GenAI, I think that number is only going to go up. They'll have such a strong ecosystem, such a compelling ecosystem powered by AI that you'll have no other choice but to consider them as one of the vendors to work with, right? So I think that's where the future clearly lies.
Yep. All right. I think I'll pass the button back to you, Sharon, to take us with the pricing trends and the concluding slides.
All right. Thanks, Anubhav. So I think the final topic for today is what we're seeing out there in terms of the tech pricing trends. Now, this is not a benchmarking. We have a separate team that can support you in any kind of benchmarking, but just talking about the broad pricing trends that we see out there. And I don't think this would come as a shocker to anyone. But what we're seeing is, first of all, the whole engagement model is shifting, right? Where traditionally in the past it was driven largely by license-based models. You acquired a certain number of licenses. How and where you use them was up to you. I think that has gradually shifted as, even penetration of some of the cloud-based solutions has increased. That has shifted to a subscription-based model, right? Where it is more usage-based. You either pay per use or you have a, you know, tiered pricing that is based on the actual usage. What that allows you to do is easily scale it up, scale it down based on your need, based on the seasonality, and those sort of factors. And increasingly, we see such kind of pricing models being popular for some of the cloud-based solutions, right? Any kind of cloud-based solution that's probably going to have that kind of subscription-based model where you pay based on the amount of uh, power you are using, or the amount of licenses that you're using, right? Other shift we've seen is specifically in such a time, right? I mean, let's be honest, we are in a difficult economic time right now. While you could argue that the recession that gets talked about is still not here, technically speaking, for a lot of the major Western markets. But I think that kind of uncertainty, that kind of pessimism is still in the market. What that does is it has impacted enterprises' ability to commit to upfront spends, right? So gradually, what we're seeing to that end is that even the models are shifting from a capex heavy model to an opex model, where the upfront costs are significantly lower than what it was in the traditional models that we've seen. And what that also allows is to have a more or better visibility on the kind of operational expenses you'd be incurring, right? You don't want to spend like $5 million upfront only to realize that this is not giving you the kind of results that you originally envisioned. Rather, you'd probably start small, test it out, and then gradually scale it up, where OpEx model really shines. The other interesting thing is outcome-based constructs, right? I think as we talk about more strategic relationship between vendors and the enterprises, we're also seeing increased discussions around outcome-based pricings, where pricings are tied, or portion of pricing in a lot of cases, right? I mean, we rarely see pricing models where 100% of the fee is tied to outcomes, but usually in a hybrid pricing outcome where some part of the fee would be tied to specific business outcomes, certain goals, or KPIs. What that really does is it allows vendors to put their skin in the game, and ultimately fostering that kind of innovative environment where both the parties collaborate to create that kind of next gen solutions. The final thing is integrated stack pricing. So we've been talking about unified CX strategy. Uh, what we also see is that with that kind of adoption of ecosystems, platforms, we're also looking at integrated or consolidated pricing models for different solutions that are bundled together. What that does is for the enterprise, it makes, or it has two advantages. One, obviously, you're getting a lot of discount for adopting multiple solutions rather than going to, let's say, 10 different vendors. So you're working with a single or select set of vendors. You're consolidating the solutions that you're picking from the market, and you're getting discounts because of economies of scale. What we also see is that it makes it much more easier for your procurement team when it comes to signing up or renewals or maintenance. So all of that process becomes so much more easier that you can do it much more efficiently, which means the internal resources you would have had required in the past to maintain those kind of pricing arrangements with your vendors, that workload has significantly gone down and made the whole process much more efficient, which makes the process much more smoother, much more easier, and less painful for everyone involved. So I think those were some of the key trends or themes that we wanted to talk about as part of this discussion. We'll open the forum now to question and answers, but before we do that, just wanted to talk about the fact that if you have any other questions around either your CX and tech stacks or topics around CX tech, you can always reach out to us, whether it be around generative AI, CCaaS platforms, conversational AI, or any other technologies that are out there as far as CX is concerned. We'd be happy to get on a call and even brainstorm with you if needed, right? And of course, we'd be sharing a copy of this slides that we presented, as well as recording of the session today with you. So if you want that, you can expect that in your inboxes shortly. And with that, we'll open the session for Q&A. I think a couple of questions that also came in from the people who registered for the event, so we'll take those as well. But starting with the first question that I see out there, how are vendor markets feeling about outcome-based pricing? So I'll tell you from my experience, and Anubhav, feel free to chime in. But what we've seen is that I think the way we are seeing the market evolve, I think outcome-based models are becoming more of a necessity rather than good to have. What we've seen is that with a lot of innovation that we're talking with, let's say a Gen AI based intervention, where the whole traditional models of how enterprises and vendors work have gone for a toss. That necessitates the fact that traditional models of pricing don't work as well in current scenarios, and you need to have some level of outcome-based pricing incorporated into the contract. Now, how much of that is incorporated depends really on things like, how mature is the vendor with outcome-based pricing, how ready even the enterprises are. Because in a lot of cases, what we hear is that on the vendor side or on the supply side, there's an inherent readiness to get into such kind of pricing arrangements. But enterprises are a little more hesitant right now because they haven't fully understood such models or are hesitant because of some other reasons. So probably what vendors can do is educate their enterprises or clientele around the benefits of such approaches, how having a skin in the game kind of model can allow for a more strategic relationship, foster innovation, create that kind of culture of innovation as well. So I think that's what we clearly see out there in the market. It is moving, it is growing. I won't say it's one of the predominant pricing models out there, but definitely we see a movement on the positive side, and the traction for this model grows over time.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of points that I want to add to that, Sharang, is so one of the biggest challenges traditionally that we've heard when it comes to outcome-based pricing is the complexity in measuring those outcomes, right? That is, how do you actually measure the outcomes and then tie it to the pricing construct? So determining the right kind of the appropriate KPIs and agreeing on what constitutes success in an outcome-based pricing construct is really important for those constructs to be successful. What we've seen in the past is that especially service providers, when they are offering a new kind of technology, it might be difficult for them to have outcome-based pricing which is margin accretive, because they might in fact end up losing money by choosing that sort of a construct. But as they sort of mature more in terms of delivering the right kind of outcomes using technology to its best way possible, those margin dilutive deals are now turning into margin accretive deals, and that's where their willingness to get into these sort of constructs are increasing. So, I mean, to echo Sharon's point, yes, it is slow, but it has a huge potential for providers, and as they become more confident in turning these deals to be profitable for them, they are definitely approaching these deals with a lot of optimism.
Yeah, and I think it's a learning process for everyone involved, right? I don't think the industry is going to get to that stage overnight. I think people will slowly and steadily pilot these out in some cases, see others who've had success or failures, learn from that. And I think that's where we'll see even the teams like, one of the questions that Greg had around legal fighting it or the procurement side making things difficult. So as they get comfortable with the idea of outcome-based pricing models where they minimize the risk both for the vendors and the enterprises, I think that's really going to help increase the traction for such kind of pricing models. One of the other questions that was shared with us was, in a unified tech stack, how do we see low-code platforms creating an impact, or what do we see the role of low-code platforms in a unified tech stack? So I don't know, Anubhav, would you like to take a first pass, and then I can see if I have any additional context, or you want me to take it up first?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, low-code platforms, given the nature of them itself, that they are really good in rapid deployment, and they help in creating CX solutions that seamlessly integrate and have a very small development time, right? They allow for adaptable workflows as well as rule-based personalization. And large scale deployments may face complexity issues, but for medium scale deployments, low code platforms are really good. and they are particularly effective for for unified customer portals and integrated support systems. But they may require traditional development for complex, large-scale projects.
Yeah, I think everything has a place and time where they work well. I think with low code platforms, if you're using or looking at a low complex scenario or a fairly small site deployment, I think they really work well. But as you start to scale up or add more complex pieces to it, I think that's where some of the challenges become really apparent with some of these solutions. Moving on, one of the other questions that we had was, how do you measure the efficacy of your CX strategy? Now, I think it's a really important question, while it might seem quite simple. But I think with a lot of changes that are happening out there, we're talking about transformation, we're talking about technology. How do you even measure the success, or how do you even check if your investments, your initiatives are bearing that kind of fruit? Now, honestly, taking a pass at it, I think the way we see it, it is not that complex. You still need to stick to the fundamentals. What I really mean by that is, for enterprises, by tracking some of the key performance metrics like customer satisfaction, net promoter score, retention rate, or the average resolution time. Again, fairly established, well-known KPIs in the industry. But even if you measure them effectively, I think you can, to a considerable degree, understand if your digital investments are bearing fruit or not. Additionally, what we see is, things like monitoring customer feedback, uh, monitoring some of the business outcomes like sales growth or operational efficiency, and how that is also impacting customer experience. I think that becomes important. What is really important is also measuring them regularly at, scheduled intervals of time, and tracking them through changes that you've made. So having that kind of monitoring system that can create that kind of cause and effect, that becomes crucial as you're trying to measure that effectiveness of some of these investments, innovation that we're doing on the CX front. Probably the last question that we take is, how do you make sure, if you have multiple point solutions, how do you bring that together, and what is the role that a service provider or your third-party partner can play in such an initiative? So, Anubhav, maybe do you want to take that one up?
Yeah, I mean, so as previously mentioned, right, that there are the role that service provider plays is really picking the best solutions for the enterprise. We talked about the different sort of systems that constitute the CX tech stack. Uh, Given that BPOs work with a lot of clients, they understand which solution would work the best for your particular enterprise. It might not be the biggest name out there in the market. What the BPOs or what the service providers really do is really in understanding your current context and what is essential or what is beneficial for you at this point given your circumstance, and help in integrating and creating that text or that ecosystem. You get the best of breed of solutions which have high interoperability, which have the right sort of connectors built in place to get to that unified highly integrated tech stack that we've been talking about.
Right, and on the point of, I think, third party, there's another question that I just saw. This is from Charlie, talking about the fact that whether outcome-based licensing models are more predominant with the BPOs compared to tech platforms. I think to a degree, yes. I would say that's a fair assumption. We've seen traditionally BPOs being more open to the idea of offering such kind of pricing outcomes, whereas the tech platform providers are more on either usage based or other kind of traditional pricing models. But I think that conversation is really evolving and changing. I think everyone understands that the kind of market that they're in, and we'll see that kind of change, maybe not overnight, but gradually. But even on the tech platform side, we're seeing that kind of change. The other question is, with BPOs, would you recommend having all eggs in one basket? Uh, what we've seen is with some of the recent signings that we're seeing in the industry, enterprises are shifting their focus to working with few but more strategic BPO partners, which means that rather than working with, I don't know, 15 different vendors, that want to consolidate that to 3 or 4. And even in cases where they're procuring tech from these vendors, the contracts are built in such a way that potentially down the line, if they're looking at changing the vendor or taking that work back in-house, the technology layer does not get impacted. So either, in case they're looking to change vendors, that technology, whatever has been deployed, gets passed on to the next vendor, or if they're planning to bring it in-house, they can take control of that technology. So I think having that kind of explicit terms in your contracts reduces the risks. And even on the BPO side, I think they understand that you want to make it easy for the enterprises to get on such kind of engagement. So they're more than happy to accommodate if any kind of such requests come up in the conversations. All right, I think with that, we can wrap up the Q&A session. Thanks everyone again. A lot of interesting questions, and hopefully we were able to answer those for you.